Alright, hello and welcome to Glorious Miniatures. My name's Jolien, and in today's video, we're going to be painting this, the Winged Tyranid Prime. Yep, it's already primed. As you can see, it's ready to go. I use black primer. I have done for many, many decades. You can use whatever you wish, though. And we're going to start off with Barbarian Brawn from Two Thin Coats. Funnily enough, we are going to thin that paint down. You will see very shortly that I've thinned it down a bit too much, but that is okay. We will wait for those layers to dry and come back and give auxiliary coats until we got a nice even coat. Now, the wings. No, not the wings. Well, yeah, these are the wings. The fleshy bits between, I don't know what they're called, the fingers? The bones, I don't know, whatever it is. I was really struggling with that, so I do make my mind up eventually, but we're going to do some fleshy wings to begin with. Okay, I'm also going to paint the tongue, as you can see. This brush is amazing, by the way. It's one of my favorites. It's absolutely horrific. And in fact, I'm going to put some flesh over the sort of central portion of its face as well. Just down the center, just like that, as you can see. And you can see that paint is very patchy at the moment. And once it's dried, I'll just go back and do another coat. Potentially even a third coat. It really depends. But it is, it's an interesting miniature. The wings, the inner part of the wings, could potentially be painted separately. Obviously, this is all in one piece. And I do struggle painting the inside of the wings later. So just bear that in mind. But obviously they're on the inside of the wings, so you're not really going to be able to be... You're not going to be looking at them all the time. It's you're probably looking at it from the front the majority of the time. So don't worry too much. It's just a bit of a hassle. Just requires a bit of patience as always. And we can move on. As you can see, this is the Barbarian Brawn from Two Thin Coats. It's kind of similar to... What would it be called? Was it rat skin flesh? Potentially. Maybe not, in fact. I've completely forgotten the name of the colour. I don't think it's Cadian flesh tone. Anyway, whatever it is, there is a GW paint which is similar. It's sort of a darkish base flesh tone. And that's what I'm using, obviously. You can use whatever you wish. But, so I'm going to move some of that flesh actually further down its neck and a bit further on the side of its face. That sort of central stripe that I did initially looked a bit weird, so I did decide that maybe we could just expand upon that flesh sort of patch a little bit more. So yeah, that was the bony bits. We need to get some paint on those. Because at this point in time, I was really struggling. I was really struggling with how I wanted to paint the sort of finger bits. It was not ideal. I'm not used to painting Tyranids. I've been avoiding them ever since Space Crusade and Space Hulk. So they're not too keen on painting them. I don't paint them very often. And then we got some Royal Purple, one of my all-time favourite purples, along with Reaper's Nightshade Purple. We're going to slap this on everywhere we're going to do the flesh. If you saw the video on how to paint the termagants, check the top right-hand corner of the screen. If you didn't, this is our base tone for the sort of flesh of our Tyranids that we're going to do. So we're going to make sure we get the legs. We've got the tail to do as well. As you can see, that thing right there. And so we'll get... This is actually going on quite well. It's a lovely colour, as I've said. I don't think I've watered it down as excessively as I did the previous colour. We're going to move this purple up the sort of torso. Get the inner legs. This is a bit of an issue with the wing. I definitely did forget a couple of parts because the wing was covering it the majority of the time, and I sort of neglected it or just forgot about it entirely. So do be careful. We're just slapping that paint on just to get us a nice sort of general gist of what of where the paint's going to be going in the future. I think the room was quite warm when I was painting this, and as a result the paint dried pretty quickly, so we could just keep getting that purple where we wanted it, rotating the miniatures slowly, and by the time we'd done a sort of complete 360, the paint was dry on the other side, and we could just get back and sort of touch up any little bits that needed it. Now I'm going to paint this purple onto the arms, sort of upper arm of the, I don't know, whatever the bit is of the wing, that bit of flesh there. It is going to change color as it progresses down, that sort of leading edge of, I don't know what it's supposed to be, bone. That is going to be, we are going to change it entirely. That bit right by my right bit of thumb, that leading edge of wing, that is going to actually change color completely. It's not going to be flesh. And then we got dark sea blue. What an amazing color this is. So we're going to use this to mark out where we're going to be putting the sort of bone carapace, and just to tidy up the miniature a little bit. I'm not going to worry if I get paint on these parts later. It's just more of a sort of planning tool at this point, just to see if I like where the colors are going to go. We haven't invested any time in it. It doesn't really matter if we make mistakes because it is the base layer. We can easily go back at this point and change the colors around to our heart's content. That's generally, I like to work like this a fair amount when it comes to miniatures that I'm not familiar with. I find it as a good sort of mapping tool. And here we go, laser magenta. I love magenta. Magenta is such a good color. But we are going to use this. And I think we are going to block out very roughly. We are going to drag this purple, this magenta, excuse me, towards the ends of each sort of limb segment. If that makes any sense. But I want to, as with all, my plan is for these, this is a leader, so the higher up the chain of Tyranids you go, the more magenta it's going to be. As you can see, that's how magenta we want it. I'm going to leave a little bit of purple there, just a little bit, and we're probably going to leave it very similar to this. And that's where the purple, the magenta is on that sort of forearm bit. I am going to extend it a little bit further though. Now, the washes from Too Thin Coats, they definitely need thinning down, okay? Do not put them on straight from the bottle. Give them a very good shake. Probably at least 50-50 with a medium, and smush it everywhere it needs to be. Obviously, if it's pooling anywhere, wick away any excess. You don't want any sort of weirdness going on there. But give that flesh, give that skin, excuse me, a good coat of the flesh wash. And wait for it to dry. If you've missed anywhere, make sure you get it covered. But once it's dry, you'll end up with something like this. Got a nice finish to it. I don't think there's any pooling. And then we're going to go back to the barbarian brawn. Okay, we do have dwarven skin ahead of us, and indeed elven skin also ahead of us. So bear that in mind. We are going to put the barbarian brawn back over the majority of the skin that we just painted. We're going to leave the flesh wash in the recesses. We're going to leave the flesh wash in sort of any sort of shaded parts that you think might need it. And then we're going to use the Barbarian Brawn essentially to paint back in that mid-tone. It's going to be the darkest mid-tone that we have. So you can be quite rough with it. If you make any massive disasters, you can always sort of put that wash back into like little, if you put it, that paint goes into any crevice by accident, you can clean it up as quickly as you can. If required, you can put some wash back in. But anyway, so we are just painting in the sort of Barbarian Brawn again to get a nice even tone on that wing. Now, those finger things, I do change my mind later on. I was really struggling before. But I want those finger bits, the bony bits, to be a lot brighter than the surrounding skin, or at least significantly. There's a significantly different from the surrounding skin. It'll be made up of the same colors, but I want them to be like, if you clench your fist, you can see like over the knuckles, like the skin lightens or it gets, you know. So I want that effect on those, but I want it the same color as the skin. I was really struggling before. I think originally my plan was to paint them magenta as well as the arms, but I tried it very quickly and I wasn't happy with the results, so we moonwalked away from that. Now we're going to go to Dwarven Skin. We're going to paint in within that previous color of Barbarian Brawn, but on a smaller patch. We're going to locate those brighter patches of skin sort of upward facing, or where the skin would be tighter on the miniature. If that makes any sense. So like, as you can see, that little line right there, I'm going to do some also along those little lines, add a bit more on the sort of upward facing bits and pieces just to lighten it up. I don't think I do it on this, but actually when I rotate that miniature, you can see one of those bones just slightly magenta through. So just going to get that just like that. Now I'm going to be concentrating on this particular wing for this video. Obviously by the time this miniature's finished, I will have painted the entire thing, but just for the sake of keeping this video somewhat short and hopefully legible, clear, I'm just going to be focusing on one part, but we'll be using these techniques on the other parts of the wings as well. Just putting those colors in slightly different areas because it's a different part of the miniature. But painting up the sort of forward-facing, upward-facing surfaces. I don't really mind about leaving surfaces which are facing the ground a little bit darker. Then they're not completely surrounded by spotlights. They're not equally lit. So just get them to like a nice mid-tone. The ground-facing bits, that's great if you want. I'm gonna brighten up. This is, I think, our second coat of Dwarven Skin. We are bringing that saturation of that color up a little bit more, making it a little bit lighter. Drawing in any little, painting in any little details, little scratches and that kind of stuff, just to add a little visual interest. Okay, and that's basically where we are. You can see they're quite a lot brighter, and you'll also see that I've not painted the wing finger bones. I don't know what they're called. I know they have a proper name, but we're going to paint the elven skin now and do some highlights on the face. So for these bits between the wings at the moment, those finger bones, I'm basically going to be doing the exact same thing. What I'm doing on these wings, I will replicate that on those bones. I will just take it a little bit brighter, make sure they read differently from the surrounding membrane. If that makes any sense. Hopefully it makes a little bit of sense. But yeah, I'm just really concentrating on the wing membranes at the moment. Adding some scratches, adding some more of this elven skin, increasing that sort of saturation of this color, making it brighter, making it different from the surrounding magenta arm that you can see right there. And what are we going to do now? Probably do a second coat. I think that's what I was doing. Nope. I was just painting a little bit different, a little bit of a different area. Making sure we got good coating, good coverage everywhere that we need it. In fact, this could have been the second coat. I'm also slightly glazing it in a little bit at this point. Made a little bit of a glaze and just sort of glazing in some areas where I think it needs it. It's one of those things where you can spend huge amounts of time painting, or you can blitz through it quite quickly and get us the majority of the way there. But as with all these miniatures, you can spend hundreds of hours on them in total, and well, it's one of those things. One of those things, really. I do not have hundreds of hours, unfortunately. Plus, I still don't know if I like this miniature. I enjoyed painting it, but I don't know if I would... I've got it with Leviathan. I don't know if I would buy it on its own. That's my... I do have that issue with Tyranids quite a lot. There are certain miniatures I absolutely adore. Like, I do have the Screamer Killer, obviously, from Leviathan. I'm very much looking forward to painting that, but I'm only going to be painting that once I've moved into the new house and have my air compressor. So, we got some magenta. Screamer pink, maybe, if you have GW paint. This is the laser magenta. We got that medium. I've made up a glaze. I'm glazing this colour in. Almost verging on a wash at this point. But I'm glazing it in where the membrane hits those wing bones. And also, I'm moving that magenta down towards the leading edge of that wing. You can see me painting it right there. This will tint the surface, and I want that membrane. I want it looking as though blood is pumping through it. So it's got that tint of red. If that makes any sense. Hopefully it does. So that's what we're doing. I slowly drag that colour higher up those crevices of the wings. It's really one of those things you have to kind of look at the miniature and see how it's going. And remember, it's probably best to make it slightly too thin than the other way around, because then you can do more layers, and more layers means more control over the final result. So I pointed my finger. It looks like we're going to do the final highlights for the skin, for the flesh, excuse me. We got the magenta, we got intense pink, and we got dawn yellow. You don't have dawn yellow, ice yellow, something like that. Going to increase the... So this is... We're putting the intense pink down where we want those final highlights. We're going to drag that colour quite a long way along its forearms and stuff like that. As you can see on this miniature here, I don't mind too much. You'll know that I will be using fluorescent magenta soonish to sort of really add some colour to the flesh. And putting fluorescent paint over a white or a colour like this, it really helps the final sort of outlook. But I'm not going to go all the way up to white on these parts. No. Okay, so I think we have in fact mixed a little bit of dawn yellow in at this point for our final sort of highlight. I could go up to white for a very final highlight, but I'm not going to be doing that. I don't have enough time. Really, I suppose I could have. It hasn't made a huge difference. But as you can see, we've put those highlights over all of its arms. You'll see that it's probably noticed that its tail hadn't been done. I wasn't fully sold on what I was doing that yet. We got the fluorescent magenta right there. We got our medium, we've thinned it down to about, I don't know, 2:1 of medium to fluorescent paint. And we're just going to smush it on there. We're going to glaze it almost. If it pulls up anywhere, wick away any of the excess. And you can do several coats, as many coats as you really want. And I've started doing it right there. It was pooling a little bit there. Hopefully I tidied that. Yeah, there we go. Got it. Thankfully. But yeah, you can see it does add a lot more vibrancy to this miniature. And this is only the first coat, so once this is dried, we can do another coat. If we want. One doesn't have to. Really depends on one's personal preference. I like this colour a lot, so I will absolutely be coming back. Oh, removing that hair from that brush and doing another coat. But don't forget to get that fluorescence everywhere where you want it, on the sort of brain part there. And various other bits and pieces. Okay, we're doing our sort of second coat, second glaze right there. Now, I will say at some point, these paints can be very shiny, so there might be quite a bit of a visual difference between the skin, the flesh right here, and say the wing membranes. I don't really care about that because I will be matte varnishing the entire miniature later. However, we've got our wing bits done. We got our skin bits done up to the right purple. We got dark sea blue. Going to be doing the carapace now. So we got dark sea blue, staggered and scale green, Sotek green, temple guard blue, and white. Those are the colours that we're going to be using for this carapace. Now we've already done the carapace. If you haven't done that yet, get that dark sea blue down, tidy up any parts that you might have accidentally put a bit of purple or magenta onto, or whatever flesh colour. We're going to be doing a massive, don't know, it's not even a chunky highlight. I call it a chunky highlight sometimes, but we're going to put that staggered and scale green down, leaving that dark sea blue in the sort of crevices, in any cracks and stuff like that. I'd probably say maybe almost a half of the previous colour you want to be going over with this colour. We do have a final stage on the carapace where we can kind of blend it all together, so it doesn't really matter. So, I'm getting a good amount of this down. Obviously, you want a couple of coats. You want to get the scything talons, I think that's what these things are called. And a good coat on that as well. These things have lots of claws and whatnot. So make sure you get them before moving on to the next colour, which is Sotek green, which is what I'm using right now. So we're getting the leading edge of that blade on its head, which looks really goofy. I'm being a bit rough with this at this point. Dragging that brush from the leading edge towards the back, and it does leave a bit of the previous colour in the crevices, so I'm not too fussed. Getting any highlights, getting any ridged areas, getting the backs of the sort of carapace bits, like when that's the blade, but getting those bits. The reverse edge of the ridged carapace, if that makes any sense. Getting the leading edge right there, but then these bits right at the back as well. This is going to be, I'd probably call a chunky edge highlight, because we got a bunch of colours in the future that we're going to put down over the top of that. As you can see, that is quite a chunky edge highlight, if you can really call it that. But that's what we're going to do. You can also put in scratches of colour, like long, thin lines, just to add a bit more visual detail. We got Temple Guard blue, and we got White Star. Now, I've mixed, rather than going straight doing Temple Guard blue and then mixing those two colours together, we've just mixed those two colours together. I think on larger monsters, I might do a Temple Guard blue stage and then add white to it, but we're just going to do probably, I don't know, three dollops of Temple Guard blue to 1 dollop of white paint. It really depends. You can do as much of sort of mixing of those two paints as you require, but we want a nice sort of contrast between the two, between the previous color and this one. That's why there's a bit of a noticeable jump. You can paint in some scratches, get all those edges of the carapace. I do end up putting some scratches in. Once you've got a nice look, we're going to get the Doom Death Blackout. Yeah. That's the white star. That's the Tooth and Coat's white paint. Okay, this is looking pretty good so far. I like it. However, we need to push that contrast. So, I've made up a glaze of that black. And we are going to sort of glaze that in to the recesses, the darkest parts of the carapace. Sort of really increase that. That's why it didn't really matter the previous, like the very first stage, like when we put this Stegadon scale green down, because I knew we'd be coming back at this point. We'll be glazing over the majority of that with the Doom Death Black. And this just really helps boost that contrast. Contrast is a great thing. Definitely something I need to kind of work on, improve in the future. That's hopefully 2024 is going to be a good year of learning for me in that regard. I've got various things I'd like to get my head around. This last year that we've had, 2023, has been a bit of a write-off due to the housing situation. Its painting has been taken an absolute back foot, unfortunately. But yeah, so do as many of these glazes as you wish. Oh, hello. Super. And that's basically where we end up. I think it looks pretty good. I think it looks pretty good. However, this is the final step. Got the white paint of choice. I'm currently using the white star because all my other stuff is in storage. We're going to get the edges of the carapace. That was a bit too thick on that bit there, but oh well. Going to get the edges of the carapace as sort of raised lips and all that sort of stuff with the white paint. Get any corners where carapace meets and that kind of stuff. You can paint in any scratches with this. I don't think I want to go too crazy and completely do a thin edge highlight of absolutely everything. It is something I might well do on the larger monsters. Like the Screamer Killer, I might do a really fine edge highlight of absolutely every bit of carapace. But I think on this size miniature, I think this works out really nicely. Now, don't forget all of the little claws and things these have. They are riddled with them. It's a bit exhausting, but oh well. And we got the white paint. I did make a little bit more progress. Okay, so here we do the white paint. We're going to paint the eyes. I accidentally forgot to record this, so this is a complete oopsie. You'll see me painting the eye with pure white. And then we got fluorescent green, well, fluorescent lime. We mixed that about, I don't know, 50-50 or something with a medium. Mixed it thoroughly, painted it directly over the white. Waited for it to dry, put down another coat. And now we got the teeth to paint. I also forgot to paint them. So that's why I'm painting them a bit late. We've got the Xandri dust. We're going to paint these teeth and any other bits you really wish to paint. I was umming and ahhing. I did think about maybe painting the teeth like the carapace. Maybe that would work better. I'd love to know what you think in the comments below, though. So let me know. So we got the Xandri dust, and we're going to do a highlight of Ushabti bone. I haven't done any shading on them, really. One could do a sort of brown wash, Agrax earth shade or whatever it's called these days, and then back with the Xandri dust, and then doing the final highlight with Ushabti bone. And potentially you could go up to Screaming Skull if you really wish, but I don't really think on a miniature this size that it's needed. But I really like how it's looking. Obviously the base we'll do in a future video. Check top right hand corner for that. Do make sure that you've liked, subscribed, hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss that future video and future videos in general. And I'll see you in the next one. Thank you and goodbye.